Did you have a lot of help from them?
I sort of tried not to get anybody involved as such unless I went into, on the only odd occasion when I went into a hostel, and I found that there was a lot of help available at the time. And I tried to do everything on my own and, tried to sort of...
Yeah. Well, you said that, there was problems right from the beginning, 1 week after you got married. What made you then decide to have a child?
When I find it, at the last time when we split up, I moved back in and everything was going fine, and we decided, this was the right time, and we'd finally settled down and felt that it was the right time to have a child. And
did you think, because I know that a lot of people think that if you're in a marriage or a relationship that isn't working, having a baby might bring you guys closer. Obviously, that wasn't the case.
No, I didn't think that. I didn't want a child for that reason. We really wanted a child together, but we had a child after like five years after our marriage, because in the beginning there was all this moving in and out, and the last time when I moved back in, it was kind of, right, this is it. And we went to 3 months without having an argument with the family, so we thought, right, it's all settled now.
Now, Rich, you said that arguments started right away over something so trivial as cooking.
Absolutely, yes.
Which then escalated into you getting divorced.
Yes.
Did you at any point ask you said that, your extended family didn't really want to get involved, but in a situation like this, when a marriage is falling apart, did your aunt and uncle that were here, did they then try to mediate?
Yes, they did. But it was always, quite a few people actually mediated to try and save this marriage. But it was always a case of, it's all her fault and she has to compromise. And I found that in the whole instance that I was living and discussions were happening, there wasn't anything like, yes, we will compromise a little bit on our end as well. It was always, she has to change.
Reshma, I want to also speak to you about your experience with the community and how they've treated you since the divorce. But we just have to take a short break, and we'll be back in a minute. Hi, welcome back to Broken Silence. I'm Sanyya Gardez. With more and more Asians getting divorced, why is there still a stigma attached to being an Asian divorcee? Joining me is a woman who felt ostracized by the community when she left her marriage, Reshma Kanabar. Reshma, tell us how the community reacted to you getting divorced.
I stopped getting invited to family functions like weddings, birthday parties, with close family.
Did that happen right away? As soon as you got divorced, it was like, okay, you're not coming?
Yeah, it was kind of like I was completely out of the family tree, and basically other people in the family would get invitations, and me and my son were left out. And it's been like that since the time I split up from my ex-husband.
Well, is it quite obvious? Was it really blatant, or did the community try to make excuses for the reason that you weren't invited to these functions?
No, it was blatant, because all the family, other members of the family got invitations apart from myself. So I think they made it pretty obvious.
I'm just going to go back real quick to you got married and came here from Africa. Why would you leave your whole family, everything that you ever knew, and move to a country where the only person you really would know is your husband and his family?
I came here for a holiday, actually, and came to see my grandparents, and that's when I met my ex-husband, because I was introduced to him via family. Mm-hmm. And, we liked each other and decided to get married. So it wasn't planned at all.
Did you get to meet his family as well? Did you get to see what they were like?
Yes, on a brief basis, because I believe until you don't live with somebody, you don't know what they're like. There's always going to be that, especially with me, I only knew them for 3 months, and that was on and off basis. I was more in touch with my ex-husband rather than the family.
Right.
So didn't really get to know them until I got married.
Well, people watching now might be wondering that you said, problems started right in the beginning, and you were really with your husband only for a couple of years, and you spent some time living in hostels and stuff. What would you say to people that are watching us now that would say, why would you leave your marital home? Why didn't you just stay? Why didn't you, just stay and try to make it work?
I tried a few times, but the last time was after my son was born. And my first thought was, I do not want my son to grow up in an environment where be, he's going to be watching how his mom and dad are always arguing with each other and growing up in that kind of an environment which would make him that kind of a person, and I didn't want that for my son. So the best thing for me to do for my son's sake was to leave and ask him if, and also ask him if he wanted to move out with me, and we could start our family elsewhere outside the actual, home where my in-laws were.
Well, you left when he was 4 months old. How old is he now?
9.
And
9 years old.
how is he? How does he handle, the fact that his parents are divorced? Does he still have contact with his father and his grandparents?
He had contact with his dad till he was 4 years old, and then his dad decided he didn't want to see him anymore. So
Why?
Because his dad felt that he was paying child support to me, so he didn't feel that he needed to see his son. Basically, I was being paid to look after my son, so why should he see his son?
So that's it. So he's thinking, since he's giving you a check to take care of his son,
Yeah.
that he needs to not have any communication with
No.
this.
So he basically decided one day, he'd taken him, came to me in the evening and said, this is the last time I'm going to see him. I'm never going to come and see him again, and that was it. He's not spoken to him, never sends him birthday presents, Christmas presents, complete. There's no contact at all. And it has started to affect my son now. Now that he's 9 years old, he's understanding, goes to school, meets parents, and, meets children with two parents, and he's hurting, and just recently he was diagnosed with depression.
Really?
Yeah.
At 9 years old?
Yeah.
Through a counselor? Did you take him to a psychiatrist or?
I haven't, no, because we went to the GP, and the GP, after he spoke to him, said, well, he has got depression because he's hurting inside. And he then turned around to me and said, is it okay if I see my dad? And I said, yeah, you're more than welcome to see your dad, but I don't want to approach him or approach the family, or him to approach him directly, because if he does and if he's rejected, then it'll be worse for my son.
Would you consider getting remarried?
I would, yeah. With the right person, I would. But now that my son is older, it would be a difficult one, because obviously would have to meet a person that he likes and is willing to take, accept into his life, kind of thing. So as he's getting older, it gets more difficult, because he has an opinion now as well on what kind of a person he wants in our life.
Now that you've been through the experience that you have been through, what lesson have you learned for when you do remarry? What are you going to be looking for in your next partner?
Well, it's basically, if something is wrong, and if you feel that this marriage is not working, I feel don't waste time and just walk away.
So do you think you should have left a lot sooner than you did?
I definitely should have. I shouldn't have, tried to keep the marriage working and move out and move in about 4 times, because I feel now, if I had done that sooner, then both of us would have been able to move on in our lives, and my son might not have been around, but, at least that would have been, I feel that it's him that is suffering out of all this, if I'd made that decision earlier, it would have turned out very differently.
Now we know that you did mention that your husband was influenced by his mother and his sister, and therefore this is why the marriage kind of dissolved. What mistakes do you think you made in that marriage that you would not repeat in your next marriage?
I would probably be more calmer and more supportive towards my husband, and maybe try to speak to him in a more, I don't know how to say it.
Maybe more loving? I mean, were you guys, you said that, you were living with your in-laws, but did you guys spend a lot of time together alone discussing issues that you were having?
No, I mean,